Hi there, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. My name is Melanie and today is another Smash Your Stash video. This month we were focused on free choice, which means I decided to focus on using up some of my class kits that I have accumulated. I love signing up for things. I don't always love doing them during the week or weekend that the classes are being offered, and life gets busy and the next thing you know you have an accumulation of them. So for this month I focused on getting caught up on an SCT, a Pinkfresh, some close to my heart kits, and I have made 16 cards, 9 double page layouts, 1 mini album, and 25 singles. So buckle in. I have a lot to share. Okay, so the first kit or class that I finished was a Close to My Heart kit that I've actually had for quite a while, and I had actually started on these already, and basically I had assembled and put them together. I just hadn't done the stamping, so I had done all the backgrounds. So this was a pretty easy fix to do. You make 4 of each design, and what I really appreciated about these was while there was some stamping, it was very simple stamping with one color. So it just, again, they came together super quick. So I have 16 cards to add to my stash. Pinkfresh class had a couple of small mini albums, and while I love putting mini albums together, I think they're so much fun, I have found that I don't necessarily love finishing them off. As a result, I only made 1 mini album. I didn't make the other. I think there was one other one that was offered in the class. I just decided to put those supplies back in my stash and I'll use them for other projects. But for this one, I did want to make it. It was this little tag album, and the die that came with the class is specifically designed to work as an album, so I thought it would be kind of fun to put that together, and so I did. Now I'm going to also mention that all of these things that I'm sharing with you today as far as scrapbooking goes, they don't have any pictures. We all know by now how much I love printing photos, and yeah, it just wasn't going to happen in this particular scenario. So I guess I was more focused on just getting the projects done as opposed to printing photos and trying to find things that match. I also like to just sometimes let the photos find the layouts, if that makes any sense. So if I try to force it too much, I'm not always very happy with the end results. And so, when it works, and I'm always surprised when it does. And so why fight that, right? So this is a cute little mini album. I'm not sure what I would use it for. We'll see. We'll find out. Or maybe its purpose will just be in the making. Okay, so now let's move on to the single page layouts. One of the reasons why I love taking these classes is because it forces me outside of my comfort zone. Some of these are quite heavily embellished, and that's not my normal style. And others of these really do fit quite in with my style quite easily. But I do it because I like to be pushed a little bit. Some of these designs are similar to others that I've done in the past. This kind of wreath concept with the tucked in photo. Very common type of design that I've had in these classes, and I don't mind them. They all look still a little bit different. There are some things that I've taken away from the classes, like doing embellishment clusters and stuff like that. Again, that's not my strong point, and so it is good to get the practice in for those types of things, and just some different ideas. So this would be an example of what I would consider an overly embellished layout. I would never put this much, at least I don't think I would. I would struggle with using things like this cat die cut. I don't have any cats in my life, so it just, doesn't seem to lend itself. But I'm trying to embrace less of a literal interpretation of things and more a look and feel, or mood and feel, I guess. I do try and write down the size of the mats, and I do include white mats for all the photo placements. I just find it easier for when I'm adding embellishments to know where not to add adhesive, so I can tuck a photo in at a later date. I can choose to either do a full photo that covers the entire mat, or I could use a slightly smaller photo or trim the photo down to leave a white border. Either will work. This particular class had actually a pocket page layout that corresponded with it. The pocket page was fine. It was, you know, nothing extraordinarily groundbreaking or anything like that. And I can appreciate the intent behind it. However, knowing myself, I am not a huge fan of pocket pages, and so I just did the layout and did not do the corresponding pockets. This was an Allison Davis class, so you can see her style. She had done a lot of stitching on hers. That was something else that I did not follow through. Where they asked to do stitching, I just didn't. I was not in the frame of mind for that. This actually layout was another one that was heavily focused on stitching, and the idea was we were supposed to stitch, or at least pierce holes around and do stitching along the panels, and I just did the little dash lines instead, or I did like kind of a hash drawn line around the die cuts instead of using stitching. Again, I just wasn't in that mindset, so why force yourself to do something that you aren't interested in? One of the classes from SCT was focusing on larger photos, so I have matted it with the photo size that was intended, but there's nothing that says when I actually go to scrapbook this, you know, that I couldn't include 2 photos instead of the 5x7, or as in this case 6x12. A lot of these included a title. If I thought the title would be useful, I included. If I thought it was something that wasn't, I just left it off. So like in that last one, I left it off. This one, you know, you could say that this is the title, or I could always add another title down here on the bottom. Or for instance, something like this where the tag says Happy Together, pretty generic. I figure I could come up with something with that. This one, I didn't add the title because it just didn't fit. Same goes with some of the embellishments. Now this is actually a different class. This is from Pinkfresh. A lot of these have, you know, sentiments and things. I just went with what they recommended in the class or suggested in the class, unless I knew it was absolutely something I would never say. But there's nothing that says I can't turn around and come back and, you know, place something over top of them if it better tells the story. So this one would be a very big example of one that's a bit risky, right? You know, take it easy, do your thing. So this is really lending itself in a very specific direction for this, and I think that's okay. I could see using this for documenting a graduation, or even maybe just a picture of myself, you know, as a reminder to not take everything so seriously. The nice thing about having all the embellishments on and photo placements, these layouts will go super fast once I pick the photos. This is another layout that I probably would never have come up with on my own. It has like an accordion fold ridge here. I've noticed that Pinkfresh designers, or the people that teach the classes, love to use a lot of very dimensional items with cardstock. I'm not opposed to dimension. It's just not something I would, you know, normally think of. This one is probably closer to my style than a lot, really. At least I think. I really like all the white space. I probably would have added another photo, but again, there's nothing that says when I go to do this layout, preventing me from adding like a 2x2 photo down here in the corner. Definitely there's still some room to adapt. We did do a cut file, which I think are cool. They are not my favorite to make. Something I have learned. The fussy cutting to get everything pieced, yeah, it's all right, but it's definitely not my favorite. But it's good to be pushed outside my comfort zone and do something a little bit different. Now this use of a cut file is much more my speed, where you're using it more as a layer item in the background than necessarily covering and filling in all the different empty spaces. Here's basically that same design again with a wreath and a 3x4 photo tucked in the bottom right corner. This was a lot of fun using the stamped images to create your layouts, and this is a reminder to myself that I really do need to use my stamps more for scrapbooking. This comes back to a discussion that Nikki and I had on one of our Calling Creative conversations where, you know, I tend to focus more on using the supplies that are ready to go as opposed to being creative with my supplies. But this was a lot of fun. And I think the direction I'm heading in is kind of doing more of some batch processing where I do one activity en masse. And this is definitely something I could see me doing, like just creating a bunch of embellishments like this and having them ready almost like its own ephemera package that you would purchase. Pinkfresh almost always offers a large washi tape class. This one was no exception. This was a beautiful washi tape, and it actually lent itself really quite well to the layout. So I've got a couple here using this washi tape. The only downside I would say with the washi is that there is a lot, which sounds good in theory, but to be honest, it's really too much for one person. I think by the time, you know, I were to use the whole roll, I would be more than done with it, so to speak. But that could just be me, because I have, you know, the wandering eye, or, you know, like to always move on to the next best thing. I found this layout very interesting where we stamped this background basically and then added it onto a white card base. So you get a lot of that white on white, which again, Pinkfresh is very known for. Not something I normally gravitate towards, but it was fun to, again, you know, play with those embellishments. This one here, they tried to, you know, make it a little bit interesting with kind of having some folded cardstock that you could tuck photos in. I don't know that it necessarily translates that this was a tucked piece versus if you just had, you know, a strip of cardstock, but I understand the sentiment behind it. Okay, so let's move on to the double page layouts next. So I had purchased one of the scrapbook kits from Close to My Heart that had a travel theme. I do travel fairly often for work, and I think these kind of layouts lend themselves really quite nicely to documenting those. I just loved this background paper. I was a little disappointed that so much of it got covered up by the design, but overall I still think it was a fun layout, a little bit more traditional in its design as opposed to some of those other classes that are offered, like from Pinkfresh and Scrapbook and Cards Today. At least that's my feel. This is I'm very comfortable with this. This is very much, you know, my type of style and scrapbooking. So I think we made 3 layouts using this kit. So this is the second layout, and I actually messed this up. I'm not one for reading instructions. I tend to I tend to be quite visual, so I look at the picture and just kind of figure out my own. This one here, I'm pretty sure I was supposed to put the paper underneath the white border. Instead, I added it on top, but I don't think you would have noticed the difference other than the fact that the white's probably, or the off-white's probably a little bit thinner than it would be otherwise. Again, it was fun. It was a little bit different. I probably wouldn't have done, you know, again, a piece like this with the cut file, but it is fun to see. I love that Close to My Heart offers the photo mats. Rumor has it that Stampin' Up!, who has kind of assumed some of Close to My Heart makers, you know, are translating and have told them, my understanding is that they're going to be offering more scrapbooking kits. Be interesting to see if they do something similar. And this last layout, I did switch it up slightly. The original design was a little bit more zigzaggy, and I went very linear with it. That just kind of fit my aesthetic a little bit better. The wonkiness of the other one just kind of, I don't know, it just wasn't sitting right, so I did tweak it slightly. I do like on this one here how they did the tone on tone matching of the embellishments. That's something that Paige Evans does quite a bit, and it's a way to use embellishments without making things seem overly busy. I did pull in some enamel dots from my stash. Other than that, everything else was from the kit. Okay, I guess I had these mixed up a little bit. We're back to the SCT class. This one was a lot of fun. I really quite like this one. It's from Simple Stories, and it uses their frames, and I don't think I would buy the frames on my own, but I have done a few classes now with them, and they are a lot of fun. I think they do add some fun dimension. It does make it a little bit trickier when you want to add photos later, namely because, you know, trying to get it to fit in underneath is always a little bit tricky. I still slid white cardstock underneath, but as you could see, it is very loosely done, and I did that for one of two reasons. One, again, just to make sure I could slide a photo in if need be. I also thought this would make it easier for aligning photos, where I could, you know, kind of trace the shape and then add the photos outside and then just pop it like outside of the page and then pop them in afterwards. At least that was my thought. This one I really did change up the title on here. The original layout was a birthday layout. I believe she turned 40, and so she was focusing on that. And while I did celebrate my 50th birthday last year, I don't think I have enough photos to fill this page, but that would have been a good option. So this was one of the layouts where I did opt to leave in the title. Sweet Girl is something I would have no problems filling. I have a lot of photos of nephews and nieces and stuff. Well, in this case, it would be my nieces. I'm sure I've got a great photo that I could, you know, blow up to 8 by 10 and then use some smaller photos on this particular page. Now this layout, while cool, is totally outside my comfort zone. When I first saw the background paper, which was paper weaving, which I think is fun and very cool, I do find this pattern paper with the weaving to be very, very busy. I probably would have picked something a little bit more subdued to do this pattern, but again, that's more my aesthetic. I thought it was fun about how you could get so many embellishments on this and still have it not feel packed. So I did like that quite a bit. This was another layout that was very interesting. We did some kind of unique, you know, folding, if you will, with some paper strips to do this XOXO, which was cute. Again, I think this is quite busy. It works, but it's quite busy. And that's okay. Again, just pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Now, I did follow this one quite closely to the original design. I even left the title in here because I love the title with this layout. I don't know exactly how I'm going to translate this with what photos, but again, opportunity will present itself, or if not, maybe we just need to make an opportunity. This one here, we focused a lot on trimming out embellishments from Project Life or pocket cards, which I thought was a lot of fun. It does, you know, make me think about ways that I can use my collection of pocket cards. So I may have to pull some out and have another look at them. And the last layout is this one, which again, very much outside of my comfort zone. I struggle using the little critters and the size proportions. Again, I'm quite literal. Yes, Tanya, I am literal. I sometimes come across as maybe I'm a little bit more open-minded about these things, but you know, I do have my struggles, and those are types of things that I do, like the fact that the strawberries are so big relative to the hedgehogs, you know, I just have to let it go. So that's really what I'm trying to embrace here. Is it's an artistic impression, it's not a literal interpretation. And that's really, I guess, what I need to focus on. So that is how I spent my last month, trying to get caught up on some kits. I do still have a ton, but they do feel much more manageable at this point. And now I just need to get working on adding photos. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is a Smash Your Stash video, which means it is a collaboration. Be sure to check out the hashtag in the description or in the title of this video to see all the other participants and what their free choice was. They never disappoint. A special thank you to Beth for hosting this challenge, and until next time, happy crafting.